Hello everyone! Let's talk about a word that strikes a fear into the hearts of consumers and brings a cold sweat to the brow of economists everywhere. Inflation. Now, before you click away and decide to watch a video of a hamster eating a tiny burrito instead, I promise you this is actually going to be interesting because inflation, despite its bad reputation, is a bit more nuanced than just prices going up and everything being terrible. It's true, inflation means your dollar doesn't stretch as far as it used to. That vintage Pokemon card collection you've been eyeing, suddenly it costs as much as a down payment on a house. And don't even get me started on the price of a gallon of gas these days. It's enough to make you want to trade in your car for a donkey and a side of hay. But here's the thing, a little inflation is actually a sign of a healthy economy. It's like your weird uncle at a family reunion. A little bit goes a long way and you kind of need him there to keep things interesting. So how does this whole inflation thing work? What causes it? Why is a little bit good but a lot very, very bad? And what on earth are central banks doing about it? Stick around and we'll break it all down for you in a way that's hopefully more entertaining than a root canal and slightly more informative than your average cat video. Let's kick things off with demand pull inflation. Imagine a wildly popular toy. Let's say it's a plush Cthulhu doll that sings show tunes. Everyone wants one. Now, if the supply of Cthulhu dolls can't keep up with the rabid demand, what happens? The price skyrockets. Parents are suddenly remortgaging their houses for a plush eldritch horror, and toy store executives are swimming in piles of money like Scrooge McDuck. That, my friends, is demand pull inflation in action. It's like trying to squeeze everyone on the planet into a clown car. The more people or money you try to cram in, the more uncomfortable and expensive things get. And it's not just about toys. This can happen with pretty much anything. Housing, food, you name it. Remember the great toilet paper shortage of 2020? Empty shelves, price gouging, people brawling in supermarket aisles. All thanks to a sudden surge in demand. Now you might be thinking, but John, what causes these surges in demand? Well, my inquisitive viewer, there are a few usual suspects. Sometimes it's good old-fashioned consumer confidence. When people feel good about the economy, they tend to open their wallets a little wider. This is like after a big win for your favorite sports team. Everyone's feeling flush and ready to party, even if they just spent their rent money on overpriced nachos and beer. Of course, governments can also play a role. Remember those stimulus checks that went out during certain economic crises, like a sudden influx of cash into a small town? All that extra money sloshing around can lead to a spending spree, which, you guessed it, can fuel inflation. Now, let's move on to our next contestant on the price hike game show, cost push inflation. This one is all about the cost of producing goods and services. Imagine waking up one morning to find that the price of coffee beans has tripled overnight. Maybe a giant space squid attacked the world's coffee plantations, or maybe there's just a global shortage of those little red berries. The reason doesn't really matter. What matters is that your morning cup of joe just got a lot more expensive. And it's not just coffee. Anything that goes into making the things we buy, from raw materials like oil and lumber to labor costs and transportation, can contribute to cost-push inflation. Remember when the Ever Given, that giant container ship, got stuck in the Suez Canal? That little mishap caused a ripple effect through global supply chains, leading to shortages and price increases on everything from cars to electronics. See, businesses are a lot like those inflatable tube men you see at car dealerships. They need a constant flow of air, or in this case, materials and labor to keep standing. When the cost of that air goes up, they have no choice but to pass those costs along to us, the consumers. And just like that, your dream of owning a solid gold bathtub drifts further and further away. The real kicker is that cost-push inflation can be a bit of a vicious cycle. If the price of, say, oil goes up, that increases transportation costs, which in turn makes everything from groceries to clothing more expensive. And if those prices stay high for too long, workers might start demanding higher wages to keep up with the rising cost of living, which can then lead to, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Chapter 3. Wage price spiral, a vicious cycle of wanting more. Buckle up, folks, because we're about to enter the economic twilight zone known as the wage price spiral. This is where things can get a little loopy, like a hamster running on one of those squeaky wheels that never seems to go anywhere. Remember how we talked about workers demanding higher wages when the cost of living goes up? Well, that's the first step down this twisty-turny path. Let's say our hypothetical Cthulhu doll factory workers are feeling the pinch of rising prices. They're struggling to afford their rent, their kids need braces, and their dreams of one day owning a solid gold Cthulhu doll are fading fast. So they go to the boss and demand a raise. Now, the boss, being a reasonable Cthulhu enthusiast, understands their plight, but those raises don't come cheap. To cover the increased labor costs, he has to raise the price of those adorable yet slightly sinister plush toys. But here's the catch. Those higher prices mean that now everyone, including the factory workers, has to pay more for everything. It's like everyone's on a massive economic seesaw and no one can get off. The workers, realizing their newfound wealth doesn't go as far as it used to, go back to the boss and demand another raise. And so the cycle continues. Wages go up, prices go up, wages go up again, like a game of economic hot potato that nobody wants to be stuck holding. This spiral can be tough to break out of, like trying to escape from a room full of mirrors. The longer it goes on, the harder it is to get things back under control. It's enough to make you want to throw your hands up in the air and say, you know what, I'm just going to live in a cave and barter for my goods and services like it's 10,000 BC. But before you start stockpiling acorns and flint tools, let's see what, if anything, can be done to tame this inflationary beast. Chapter 4, Too Much Money, Too Few Goods, the hyperinflation horror story, and now for the grand finale, the economic nightmare that keeps central bankers up at night, hyperinflation. This is when inflation spirals out of control like a pack of rabid weasels let loose in a confetti factory. We're talking prices rising by insane amounts, 50%, 100%, even thousands of percent in a very short period of time. It's the kind of situation where you might need to use a wheelbarrow full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. And good luck finding a wheelbarrow, because those are probably going for a king's ransom now too. So how does a country end up in this economic hellscape? Well, there are a few ways to get there, but it usually involves a toxic cocktail of government mismanagement and excessive money printing. Imagine a government desperate to fund its operations or pay off debts decides to just print a whole bunch of money. It seems like an easy solution at first, like making it rain with monopoly money. But here's the problem. Printing more money doesn't magically create more goods and services. It just means there's more money chasing after the same amount of stuff. And when that happens, the value of each individual unit of currency plummets faster than a penguin in a bungee jumping competition. People lose faith in the currency, hoarding goods and precious metals like they're preparing for the economic apocalypse. And in a way, they kind of are. Hyperinflation can cripple economies, wipe out savings, and lead to widespread social unrest. Think of it like this. Money is like a good joke. It's all about timing and value. Tell a joke too many times and it gets old, loses its impact. Print too much money and it loses its value, leading to an economic punchline that's about as funny as a kick in the shins. So yeah, hyperinflation is something you definitely want to avoid. It's not exactly the kind of economic legacy you want to be remembered for. Outro inflation, it's a balancing act. So there you have it. Inflation, the good, the bad, and the please let me trade all my possessions for a can of beans ugly. But remember, a little inflation around that 2% sweet spot is actually a good thing. It encourages businesses to invest, consumers to spend, and keeps the economy humming along nicely. The real trick is keeping it under control. That's where central banks come in, those economic wizards trying to keep the whole system from going haywire. They have a few tools in their arsenal, like adjusting interest rates and controlling the money supply. Think of them as the conductors of a very complex and slightly unhinged economic orchestra. Their job is to make sure all the instruments are playing in tune and that the whole thing doesn't devolve into a cacophony of financial chaos. It's a delicate balancing act, to be sure, but hey, at least it's not boring, right? Just try not to think about hyperinflation too much. You wouldn't want to lose sleep over the possibility of needing a wheelbarrow full of cash just to buy a gallon of milk, unless, of course, you happen to be in the market for a slightly used wheelbarrow. In that case, get ready to pay a hefty price. Small, steady inflation around 2% per year is considered healthy for the economy. Central banks control inflation mainly by raising interest rates, reducing money in circulation, and managing expectations. This slows down spending and borrowing, helping stabilize prices without, hopefully, crashing the economy in the process.